Last time on One Piece, first impressions. Whole Cake Island is a paradise! Damn, forgot how sad my backstory was. Sanji, we're here to save you! Ew, yuck, the poor! Bash! You didn't mean it! I know! The day has finally come. Love is in the air, guests will be arriving from across the new world, and Big Mom will finally get to eat her beloved wedding cake. Oh, Sanji and Pudding are also getting married. That's cool too. Today, I continue my discussion of One Piece's Whole Cake Island arc, where I'll be talking about everything from Brook versus Big Mom, up through Luffy taking Kataguri to the Mirror World. For those of you just joining us, I'm Denny, and this is the series where I go through the One Piece anime as a first-time viewer and offer up my first impressions. If you're curious about my thoughts on the previous section of this arc, there should be a link in the description. We have a ton of wedding madness to get through, so without further ado, let's sail on. We last left off with Pudding telling Raju the truth about her plan to kill Sanji and Big Mom's plan to kill the Vinsmokes, but Pudding edited Raju's memory to forget about it. Sanji sneaks into the infirmary and tells his older sister everything, which she fully believes, but she wants the plan to proceed. She wants to let Big Mom wipe out Germa 66, but she wants Sanji to escape for the sake of their mother. Now, we get some of that good Mama Vinsmoke backstory that was teased earlier. Sora objected to Judge's experiments on her children, but he essentially treated her as a breeding machine. It's unclear how they ended up together in the first place, but we see no love between these parents. Sora went so far as to take medicine to reverse the genetic enhancement while she was still pregnant, which is what ended up putting her in her sickened state. The medicine didn't work for the other boys, but it did keep Sanji human. I think the use of the word human is important here. It explicitly tells us that the other Vinsmoke children, who have had all their emotions essentially stolen from them, aren't human, they are monsters. In a way, I almost feel bad for them since they are the product of inhuman experimentation. On the flip side, I don't care what Judge's sad backstory is, I fucking hate him. After Sora died, Judge steps on the flowers Sanji left at his mother's grave and brings his 3 little creeps to kick his ass and mock him. Fuck Judge forever. I hope he dies a brutal death that I can watch over and over and over and over and over and over and over. The point of Raju telling Sanji about their mother's sacrifice is to let him know that he isn't a failure. He is instead the success story of their mother, who is willing to give up her own life in order to make sure he came out exactly how he did. He may have failed as Judge's monster, but he succeeded as Sora's human. This is exactly the boost Sanji needed. But he's still hesitant to flee the island out of fear for the ones he cares about. To try and push him in the right direction, Raju lets Sanji know that the bomb bracelets are fake. It feels like a bit of a cop-out, but it makes sense since Raju has been watching over him as an extension of Sora's will. In my head, I thought we'd get a scene reminiscent of Sanji getting the key for his mask, but instead it's for his bracelets, and that would lead to one final confrontation between Judge and Sanji. I thought that could have been great, but this works too. So now, Sanji has a decision to make. In the meantime, let's check in on one of the most interesting fights in this arc, Pedro versus Baron Tamago. Last we saw, Pedro had cut the good Baron open, releasing a fat yolk from his body. Welp, turns out that causes Tamago to evolve into a chick form where he goes by Viscount Yoko. I'd say this gives us an answer to that age-old question, but things continue to proceed in a beyond stupid fashion, and it's my favorite thing in a long time. The idea of this egg fruit user going through a cycle of evolutions on an infinite loop is so wacky and insane, playing on the shonen transformation trope, but having fun with it, that I can't help but love this fight. This may be one of my favorite Devil Fruit powers yet, due to the sheer simplicity and how unexpected it was. So, good old suicidal Pedro decides he's gonna blow himself up with a dynamite strapped to his chest to take down a horde of Big Mom's men, and I thought this was gonna be some bullshit. I thought that Pedro was just gonna blow himself up wearing a belt of dynamite after this huge buildup, and that it was gonna be another bullshit fake out death where he just takes the damage and is fine, and everything was just going so well, but I was wrong. Sorry, these fake out deaths have me on edge, but they have been handled fairly well ever since Brownbeard on Punk Hazard. Chopper saving Pedro at the last minute through the Mirror World is acceptable. Thank you I'm sorry, that was very rude of me. Oh, also, Viscount Hiyoko turns into his ultimate chicken form, Count Niwatori, and that's just the circle of life, baby. Meanwhile, it's time for another Jinbei Luffy jailbreak. Jinbei has arrived at the prison library where Nami and Luffy are being held, and rather than allowing Luffy to tear his own arms off, he decides to pull a Hitler and burn that book instead. This allows for everyone imprisoned in the pages to break free, and causes the first of several outfit changes I'll discuss today. Nami puts on some overalls, which looks fine. Luffy has Jinbei take Nami to escape the Whole Cake Chateau, while he runs on ahead to go find Sanji, even though he's beginning to run low on energy from his dedicated fast. After some chaotic antics slapping some guards around, Luffy is intercepted by Raju, who gives him the scoop. Knowing that Sanji knows Pudding's true colors is good enough for him, so he heads back to the rendezvous point, which I thought was sweet. Although Luffy is emotionally blackmailing Sanji with a hunger strike, at least he isn't being pushy about it. Around the same time, Sanji reviews the tattered food basket that he put together for Pudding, and realizes that he packed all of the Straw Hat's favorite foods. He wants to forget about them. He wants to be killed with the rest of the Vinsmokes to ensure the people he cares about are safe, but something clicks in him when Glory Hole Face shows up to take some meat. Sanji snaps, attacks him, and then rushes outside to Luffy. He's back, baby! Before we get into some inter-crew drama, I do want to focus on Brook's best showing to date. In my last video, I discussed how I was very happy to see Brook going up against Big Mom, since he really hasn't done much in the story since Thriller Bark. Once the fighting actually gets going, I was even more impressed. We get a taste of this Emperor's power and show Brook's determination to complete his mission to benefit the crew he greatly respects. However, he's just one pile of bones, and although he does get a good shot in on Prometheus, ultimately, he isn't a threat to Big Mom. Then, the way she treats him after the fight is humiliating, stripping him down and toying with him like a doll. But, while Big Mom is talking about her road poneglyph, she says some crazy ass shit. Firstly, she says she regrets allowing Roger to read her poneglyph with his weird ability to hear the voice of all things. Then, she says that she will soon have someone with that ability, which apparently is Pudding, and it has something to do with her third eye. She's got the blood of the Third Eye tribe and an ability that needs to awaken. I'm sorry, what the fuck is going on right now? This is some classic One Piece foreshadowing. In previous videos, I've completely forgotten to mention the voice of all things, and attributed a lot of that to Haki, which is dead wrong, and I apologize for that. We do know that Luffy has some voice of all things powers, although he doesn't appear to be as powerful as some others that we've met, like Momo. But I guess this is also an ability inherent to the Third Eye tribe, which is presumably why Big Mom even birthed Pudding in the first place. I wasn't expecting someone to have to talk to the poneglyphs, but hey, I have no idea what to expect with these stones anymore. Meanwhile, Brook is taken to bed by Big Mom, and thankfully for both parties, not in a sexual way. She's still treating him like her new favorite doll, while some of the crew come to rescue him from the mirror world. This was a half fun, half dumb sequence that I feel maybe works better on the page than on screen. Everyone screaming through the mirror at whoever is trying to rescue Brook at the time needed to be slapped to death. Especially Carrot, who is just dumb Chopper. I haven't had an issue with Carrot until this section of the story, when she really started to wear on me. She's so underdeveloped, and her personality doesn't seem as unique or solidified as everyone else, which is odd since she was introduced in the story before Pedro. She's essentially just dumb and occasionally cute. It's weird. I don't know why she's here, but she's annoying, and I hope something cool happens to redeem her a bit. But the piece de resistance, by far the biggest outcome to come from this side story, is that Brook did get copies of the poneglyphs. He hid them in his damn skull. Dude is the MVP of this arc. Absolutely hell yeah, this is major. Now the Straw Hats are halfway to acquiring all the road poneglyphs, with the last one they know the location of belonging to Kaido. After all that abuse and humiliation by Big Mom, I'm glad Brook got this win. It was much needed and well deserved. Good for this bony boy. Outside the Whole Cake Chateau, a starving Luffy has fought his way back to the field where he'd promised he'd wait for Sanji. Sanji arrives, seeing the aftermath of the battle, and panics, hoping he isn't too late to save his friend. Then, he hears a stomach growl. Luffy is resting against the remains of King Bomb, and he looks completely emaciated. This boy's body just doesn't work like normal people. Sanji gives Luffy his food basket, and the two get to talking. Sanji claims that he cannot go back to the crew for 3 reasons. The first is that he attacked his captain, who didn't even fight back. The second is that it would endanger everyone at Poitiers. And the third is that he can't let his family die. That last one really surprised me. A rejuvenated Luffy then gets up and absolutely clobbers him, demanding he say how he really feels. Classic Luffy. Sanji confesses that he wants to go back to the Sunny, but he's been too afraid of what would happen. He says that even though he knows he can't do it alone, he wants to save his family, even though they're scum. Luffy smiles and says, "Of course you do. That's who you are. You've got us. Let's crash this wedding." Hell yes, the boys are back! I think this was such a fantastic scene between these two. It really gets at the heart of what's been plaguing Sanji, and the writing for his character is so well done that you can feel him coming to terms with his emotions as he's speaking through them with Luffy. The way the scene was put together in the anime was perfect. The music, the lighting, the performances, all excellent. I also like how this was a really private moment. It's just the two of them talking in the rain, and by the end, the sky clears and the sun rises again. I'm glad they finally worked it out. Even though I want the Vinsmokes dead, it's such a better story if Sanji doesn't. He's a better man than me. I actually wasn't sure if we'd get to see the wedding in this arc, but at this point, I was very excited to see this chaos go down. A secret wedding operation with these stakes, complicated relationships, powerful foes, and setting? How could I not be excited? The rest of the crew is together in the mirror world, and when Luffy tells them what went down with Sanji, they are all 100% on board with helping out their friend. Although, Nami does say she'll never forgive Sanji for scaring her. She still obviously cares for him, and throughout the rest of the section, we do see her warming up to him again, but I wonder if this will actually have lasting implications. The only issue now is how to save the Vinsmokes while keeping Sanji alive. They're gonna need some stand-up guys to help. Some real good fellas. Luckily, Jinbei knows just the people. Capone Beiji and his gang of fire tank pirates are looking to kill Big Mom at the wedding. This came as an absolute surprise to me, although I figured something had to be up with this sleazeball. We get Gang's whole history from Jinbei, and it's about as stereotypical as one could imagine for a gangster-themed pirate, but the most interesting thing about Gang is that he's always had this desire to kill those in charge. After over a year of planning, of ingratiating himself among the Big Mom pirates and gaining their trust enough to run security for the wedding, everything has gone according to this lunatic's plan. And now, there's an opportunity to bring the Straw Hats into the fold. While everyone is getting cleaned up for meeting the big boss, Chiffon and Nami get to talking about Lola, and we finally learn what exactly went down with her previous engagement. Big Mom had promised Lola to the Prince of Elbaf, named Loki, that should be raising some red flags, but Lola refused. Based on his name and what we know of Lola, I'm guessing Loki is a bad guy, which is really unexpected for the Giants, but that's something I want to come back to a little later. Since Big Mom is apparently hated by the Giants, she hoped that marriage would smooth things over so she could access their army, but that obviously fell through. Hence why she started her research with Caesar, and why she hates Lola, and by extension Chiffon, since they're twins. I want to talk about Big Mom's interesting relationship to the Giants in a bit, but first, I have to talk about what the fuck is going on with Luffy's body. He was all shriveled up like a raisin after eating for only, I don't know, maybe 12 hours? And let's not forget how absolutely stuffed he was before that. I get that he was using energy during his fights, but something's not right with this boy's body. Then, he drinks some milk and grows his tooth back just like Brooke. What's going on? Does this mean anything, or is it just a gag? I honestly can't tell what's cartoon nonsense or serious hints about powers anymore. Oda, you've got me all mixed up. Before heading for the meeting, we see the first in-person encounter between Sanji and Nami since he fought Luffy, and I really like this scene. Nami is cold with him, but she tells him this is his last chance. Then, we get the long-awaited... I can't tell if these two are being set up as a couple. Relationships are really avoided in the series, but the way they interact here does seem framed in more than just a friendship way, and I think it's the first time Nami and Sanji have really been written that way. It could be nothing, but regardless, I still thought it was a good moment. Now we enter some smoky back room where some underground deals are gonna be hashed out, and I thought this was so dope. I'm a sucker for some good gangster action, and the fact that the Straw Hats are gonna be participating in some mafia-esque activity is very exciting. Also, everyone's new fits look fresh as hell. Specifically, Luffy, Brook, Pedro, and Nami look fantastic. Sanji does too, but he has been rocking that frilly shirt with a cape for a while. I didn't know what to make of Gang once this scene started. He's still a cold-blooded prick, but I think he has a fun dynamic with Chiffon and his son Pez, who already has 5 o'clock shadow and a cigar-like binky. We're not there yet, but I'm glad this arc doesn't shift him from being a bad guy to a friend. He's still a bad dude, but the more time we spend with him just reveals he isn't two-dimensional. This isn't specific to the Capone family. Actually, it may apply to them least of all, but this arc is very much about dysfunctional families, and seeing them here offered a good contrast to both the Charlottes and Vinsmokes. Although there is some tension due to how Gang treated Pecoms, a plan is set in motion to assassinate Big Mom. Through their intel, they know Big Mom's weakness and her true treasure: a photo of Mother Carmel, who is very interesting. At a prior tea party, someone knocked this picture over, and Big Mom had a hysterical episode where she paralyzed everyone with her shrieking and hockey, but she also scraped her knee. Now, imagine the kind of response you'll have if someone shatters that picture. Probably not great, right? Well, good thing Luffy will be taking on that pivotal role. I thought this was all fantastic, but it does feel a little ass-pully. Like it's a really good thing Gang had this whole plan ready to go and was going to enact it on this very day. It's convenient, but it still manages to feel consistent with the larger story. It both does and doesn't come out of nowhere, and it's too cool for the nitpicker in me to care anyway. After Luffy volunteers, he says he's thought of a funny way to enter the wedding, but he's keeping it a surprise. My first thought was, what on earth could this be? Then, after he doubles down and asks Gang an unheard favor, my second thought was, dear God, what does Oda have planned? This is the real turning point for the story. It's the inciting incident for the climax of this arc, and I thought it was a fun, unexpected turn. Oh, also Caesar's here. That loser. If you thought I thought the planning stage was great, wait until you think what I think about the build-up to execution. The initial entrance and arrival of these underground leaders was so goddamn weird. The music was great. The juxtaposition in tone and character was fantastic, and the song sounded like a very old-school brassy Disney song by the end. There's been a lot of singing for this arc. It very much fits the setting, and I just want to make a blanket statement right now that it's all been delightful. We also see the Vinsmoke boys arrive, and they seem so fucking stupid by now. So arrogant and ignorant. Part of me really hoped they'd all still die, although I do like Raiju. Damn Oda and his skill of not allowing me to outright hate most people. All the underlying and hidden motivations during this setup were so well done. There are so many layers to every interaction with nearly every character because they all know something the others don't and are trying to keep it hidden. Then, one man enters the scene who is perfectly suited to see through deception. Katakuri. Big Mom's second son and one of the Sweet Three generals, he has trained his observation haki so well that he can actually see slightly into the future. This isn't a devil fruit. This is pure training. What an absolute monster. I never would have even conceived of that ability. He's the perfect antagonist for this wedding of conspiracies, making things infinitely harder to pull off. But the real question is, can he predict Luffy? Something I couldn't predict was that Pudding wouldn't pull the trigger. At the altar, Pudding was supposed to kill Sanji. This is something the Straw Hats knew, and I still thought it would be Sanji, unable to resist her charms, that would make an error or a hard choice, but instead, he simply compliments her third eye. This breaks Pudding because her whole life she's been made fun of for it, and through tears, she drops the gun and falls to her knees. What a great in-character victory for Sanji. Was just true to who he was, and that somehow worked out and was the first of many unexpected twists for this wedding. Before moving on, I was also thinking about how Oda has purposely showed us that the lust Sanji has for the ladies runs throughout his brothers as well, but he's the only one who is shown to have any chivalry. This isn't directly focused on, but I think it's such a nice, subtle bit of reinforcement to show the audience how Zeph really shaped the man Sanji grew up to be. Then, the moment we've all been waiting for. Luffy busts out of the wedding cake through the mirror dimension with a ton of animals cloned to look just like him, and chaos ensues. This visual itself is so fantastic. Bunch of rabid monkey boys in red suits running rampant at this emperor's party. Despite his flawless cover, Luffy signals to everyone that he's the real one and is pretty easily caught by Katakuri before he can smash Mother Carmel's portrait. In order to cover for Gang, Jinbei steps up to claim he's the one who helped Luffy get here, and then, in a dope speech, he submits his resignation from the Big Mom Pirates. He returns his son's cup to her, then proclaims he will be joining the Straw Hats. This was so badass and the perfect timing for Jinbei to do this, but Big Mom doesn't just give him a kiss on the cheek and wish him luck. He has to pay the price. So she busts out her roulette of doom. However, she's unable to take any of Jinbei's lifespan because he isn't afraid of her. As a member of the future King of the Pirates crew, what does he have to fear from a mere emperor? Hell yes! Jinbei's the man, completely humiliating Big Mom as he pieces out. I love it. Then, to finish off the absolute ruination of this wedding, a disguised Brook sneaks up to the table and smashes the photo of Mother Carmel with a hammer. Good for him, he deserved it. In this regard, things actually go according to plan. Somewhat. The combination of the picture smashing, the cake destruction, and the return of her precious Soul King have left Big Mom dazed, but she doesn't yet freak out. Her forces go into action, and Perospero, Lick, makes his move on Germa. Oh, oops, that's right, Judge, you big dumb asshole, you got betrayed. Fuck you! His precious boys don't give a shit at all because they're such cold, calculating machines. They just sit there and accept their fate, while poor widow Judge begins to cry. Then, Sanji saves their asses. Helping the Vinsmokes with the support of his friends was such a fantastic moment, and that look on Judge's face was priceless. Yeah, munch on crap, punk. Your whole world got flipped over twice in 2 minutes because you're dumb. God, I hate that guy. Thanks to Gang revealing himself to Katakuri, he bought Luffy enough time to place the shattered picture of Mother Carmel before Big Mom's eyes, triggering her trauma and sending us all to Flashback City. I wasn't expecting to see any Big Mom backstory, especially not of her as a 5-year-old child, but I'm always a sucker for these, and this one managed to not only flesh out why she is the way she is, but also builds out the world in a really interesting way. We see a little, and I'm using that word loosely, Charolette Linlin being abandoned by her parents on Elbaf. First ever look at Elbaf comes in a Big Mom flashback. I think there's a really important reason for that, which I'm almost ready to speak about. But Linlin's been abandoned because A, she's a destructive monster who caused some chaos back home, and B, a well-known, pretty much saint runs an orphanage for ragamuffins and outcasts on Elbaf. That woman is Mother Carmel, who also serves as an important figure in human-giant relations. So, Linlin continues to be a monster at the orphanage who both terrorizes the other children as well as the creatures of Elbaf. She is completely oblivious to how her actions are perceived, and Mother Carmel looks out for her until one fateful day when her hunger pangs begin. It's unclear if this is Linlin's first bout of hunger pangs, but it's certainly destructive. At the age of 5, she destroyed the village of Elbaf and killed one of the village chiefs. Mother Carmel begged for her life and said that she would move from Elbaf with her children, so the giants spared Linlin, but that is when the grudge between them began. That's all really interesting, and the backstory continues, but for a moment, I want to focus in on Elbaf itself. I think it's really, really interesting that Big Mom's backstory is also acting as the backstory for a lot of the giants that we've already met. We constantly hear about Dory and Brogy in this flashback, we see Oimo and Kashi before they set out on their journey to find their captains, and we even see a young Hajrudin training to become a warrior. But I think the most important information about Elbaf that comes from this section is that Prince Loki was just born. This flashback takes place 63 years ago. We know for a fact that Brogy and Dory have not returned to Elbaf for over 100 years. We know that Oimo and Kashi set out about 50 years ago and haven't returned. We don't know much about Hajrudin's past, but he never really brings up Elbaf, so his history is kind of moot to what I'm going to discuss. I think we're first shown Elbaf, the long built-up island, in a flashback, because it's going to be vastly different by the time the Straw Hats arrive. The Elbaf we see, the Elbaf we've been told about, is not Loki's Elbaf. This is a pre-Loki world, and we've only heard pre-Loki attitudes. I could really be stretching here, but I think this is exactly something Oda would pull. I don't think he'd show us this island and then have the Straw Hats show up 63 years later and it's exactly the same. We only know two things about Loki. One is his namesake. The name Loki doesn't exactly inspire confidence, but we also know Lola rejected him. Lola, the woman who would marry a pile of crap if it had a brain, ran away from home to avoid marrying Loki. That has to mean something. I don't think this is going to be a good dude. Not only that, I think he's going to be a massive problem for the Straw Hats. It would just make sense, right? Things can't just be dandy when the Straw Hats arrive. There has to be some conflict. So, what better conflict than freeing this island of jolly giants from the rule of a nefarious prince? That could all just be a massive swing and a miss on my part, but I think I'm starting to pick up on some of Oda's storytelling patterns by this point. I'm hanging my hat on this one, but it'll still be a while until we know for sure. Regardless, I still thought this look at Elbaf was pretty damn cool. It's interesting how Elbaf is the only culture we've seen that accepts its pirates into their society openly with honored positions. The two former captains of the giant warrior pirates were then beloved chieftains. Obviously, they call each other pirates, but with all the other Norse inspiration, it's clear they're Vikings, which I guess were just societally sanctioned pirates. I love that detail. It makes Elbaf feel so unique. I feel like I was talking about something else. Oh right! The government-run child trafficking ring. How could I forget? So, turns out the lovable Mother Carmel is actually essentially a slave runner, selling off kids to the world government, specifically CP0. She didn't save Linlin out of the goodness of her heart, but because she knew she'd make a huge profit off her. Apparently, she's been doing this for 50 years. Yikes. I'm guessing she's not the only one the government uses. She was stopped over 60 years ago, so I doubt anyone in the government that the Straw Hats have fought have had anything to do with Mother Carmel. But what about the 5 elders? They're a bunch of old bags, and I don't think we've been explicitly told that those are hereditary positions. Not to worry though, Mother Carmel mysteriously disappears along with the other orphans, while Linlin is in a cake-eating stupor. Yeah, so she totally ate everyone, right? That was my first thought after seeing this, but then I was like, I don't know. That might be too fucked up even for this series. But later on, there are 2 strong hints at that. Linlin's cake-eating rampage was witnessed by 2 men. One was a giant who took the news back to Elbaf, and the giants immediately mourned Mother Carmel, and their hatred for Linlin grew even greater. And the other was this creepy foodie. Strausen is a pirate cook who ate the cook fruit and takes Linlin under his care after being overjoyed at the monstrous behavior he witnessed. This little creep just rides Big Mom's coattails to the top. Almost immediately after Mother Carmel went missing, Linlin suddenly starts using her soul fruit powers, which means, dear God, she did for sure eat Mother Carmel, and this was such a subtle and fucked up way to reveal that. Well, I guess cannibalism works to steal devil fruit powers. That's not what Blackbeard did to get Whitebeard's powers, right? No. No? With Strausen's help, the Big Mom pirates are formed. It's here that we also see where Big Mom's inspiration to create a land without racism came from. It was something Mother Carmel said would be nice to her children, and Linlin took this to heart as a thing her beloved caretaker wanted. That actually explains so much. This land of racial paradise isn't something that Big Mom truly believes in. It's just a childhood fantasy that she's clung on to. I doubt she's ever actually thought of the implications of such an idea, or even the consequences of racism, since she seems to be forever locked in a childlike mental state. There's no further proof of that needed than the fact that Big Mom has stuck to her first instinct after hearing about a land where everyone thinks the same for 60 years. Either 5 or 68 years old, Big Mom thinks equality means making everyone just like her. Quite literally the opposite of diversity and being accepting of everyone's differences. The Toto Land is just her childish desires brought to life by the craftiness of her enablers. I think this is really interesting commentary, yet where I'm at in the story right now, I'm not exactly sure where Oda is going with this. However, this does explain where the inspiration behind this land came from. Welp, back in the present, the assassination attempt fails because Big Mom is so angry and everyone is completely fucked. Did you expect things to be that easy? No one can even escape because Caesar's mirror is shattered by Big Mom's voice, and I cannot believe I didn't see that coming. A plan to incite Big Mom's shriek that relies on a mirror to escape. All the elements were laid out for us by Oda, but mirrors had become such a consistent factor in this arc that I didn't even consider them not being a viable option. Another taste of great writing. What else can one do in this situation than transform? Gang turns into the Big Father, a massive castle version of himself, and everyone races to get inside him. Meanwhile, the freed Vinsmokes bust out their way too over-the-top Power Ranger transformations. The fact that they also take over the ad break screen was a nice little touch. As much as I despise these boys, I gotta give it to them. They know how to flex on the haters. Not since the Ginyu Force have I so thoroughly enjoyed a Super Sentai parody group. Everyone is on the ropes as Big Mom has snapped out of her daze. Gang comes up with a plan to escape with the help of Caesar while the Vinsmokes cover for them, since Judge doesn't want to owe Sanji anything. Ass. But of course, Luffy ends up busting outside to help too, and not a single person stands a chance. Big Mom knocks Luffy out of 4th gear almost immediately, and then she strikes down Judge. The escape plan is a complete failure, and it seems no one has any hope of escaping until Chekhov enters the picture. While this battle has been going on, a couple of the underworld scumbags have been fighting over the Tamate box. It gets knocked off the side of the Whole Cake Chateau and finally explodes, bringing the entire tower tumbling over. Big Mom is the first to fall, and finally, everyone has a real chance to escape. Thank you, bureaucratic incompetence. You never let me down. This was not the payoff I was expecting with the Tamate box, but it was a welcome one, and probably more narratively satisfying than if it just blew up in her face and pissed her off. So, it's been a long time coming, but thumbs up! Strausen is able to turn the entire chateau into one big cake and ease everyone's fall while Big Mom is caught by Zeus. So, while the toppling of the chateau doesn't really hurt anyone, except for Strausen himself, it does serve as a massive turning point in the action. Why? Because the cake reminds Big Mom of the wedding cake that she didn't get to eat. She goes full Hunger Pang freak mode while the Straw Hat Fire Tank Alliance dissolves. Each group heads their separate ways, and I'm glad this was a quick alliance. Not every ally has to be friends forever. Oh, and Caesar finally gets his heart back, and literally no one ever pays him any attention again. Loser. To stop the rampant destruction of Whole Cake Island, Perospero, Lick, tricks Big Mom into going after the Straw Hats, who are heading through the seducing woods with none other than King Bomb. Somehow this massive tree got the invincible One Piece treatment and is being cared for by the always wonderful Lady Tree when he is forced back into Nami's service. Poor guy. It's not long after that Big Mom arrives, and now I really don't get this Weaver card thing. Why the hell does that have more sway over King Bomb than Big Mom herself? Is it just because Big Mom never gives him a direct order? In that case, why doesn't she? We see her give direct orders to the trees of the forest, who immediately obey her over the Weaver card and King Bomb. This doesn't seem to make much sense. I guess I could be missing something, but to me, this seems pretty undercooked. Anyway, while the chase is on, I wanted to mention two interesting tidbits. The first real quick one is Big Mom's attack, the Spear of Elbaf, which is eerily similar to that of Brogy and Dory's attack that helped the Straw Hats escape Little Garden. What the hell is that about? They make it a point in the story to mention the similarity, and it seems odd to me. Big Mom didn't train as a warrior in Elbaf, so where'd she pick up this skill? Maybe there's more to her history with the giants after her childhood. The second thing is Zeus. He's such a little cutie chasing after Nami's thunderclouds. If he's part of Big Mom's soul, maybe she's not so bad. Or maybe the parts she removes take things away from who she is, Or maybe, he's just a glutton and that's exactly who Big Mom is, and that's why he behaves this way. Also, I like how Big Mom is the only one who can ride Zeus because he's part of her soul. Nice little nod to Dragon Ball there with the flying Nimbus. Then we actually get to a character death? Maybe. I'm always hesitant to say for sure, but it looks like King Bomb got fucking fried by Prometheus. I had come to enjoy his character, but I think it was a really nice moment to pause and show Nami's reaction to his death. Nami was using King Bomb's love for Lady Tree to keep him running. She was the reason he was in this situation to begin with, and in the end, she had to reconcile with that fact. If Nami just kept pushing ahead like nothing mattered, that would have made her out to be way too cold-blooded. So it's a small moment, but a necessary one, and it was smart for Oda to have included it. Now, all the characters have to race on foot through the seducing woods, and I swear I wrote this small nitpick down moments before it was addressed by the show. The biggest problem with the seducing woods maneuvering around to trick people is that we have several characters who can jump extremely high, and Sanji can pretty much fly. So this actually shouldn't be a problem at all. Even in Carrot's introduction, we see her jumping high above the forests of Zou. Jumping kinda seems to be her thing, cause she's a rabbit. The story eventually addresses this, like, oh wait guys, why don't we just jump? It took these fuckers being in this forest for a combined total of hours to figure that out. Yikes, dude. Carrot tries but fails, and I was like, oh, okay, there's gonna be some explanation as to why they can't. But then Pedro just does it, and that's that. Sanji doesn't even volunteer, and the man can fly. Whatever, I guess I'm just glad they eventually figured it out. Closing in on the Sunny, Pudding arrives on her magic carpet to declare she is going to save the Straw Hats. Oh yeah, we've got a good girl gone bad, gone good girl. Things have come full circle, and Pudding does have a crush on Sanji now, which is essentially making her bipolar. She doesn't know how to handle openly treating someone kindly, and I think her over-the-top expressions in response to Sanji's over-the-top expressions were very funny. Alongside Pudding is Chiffon. She parted ways from Gang and Pez, knowing she might die, in order to repay her debt to the Straw Hats for saving Lola. Their plan is to take Sanji ahead with them to Chocolate Town and use their combined skills to make Big Mom a wedding cake and end this rampage. Sanji turns to the Straw Hats and tells them he has to go, but that he'll be back. We know it, brother. I'm not crying. Get out of here. Go bake that motherfucking cake. Meanwhile, there has been some trouble aboard the Sunny. Like the actual competent antagonist that he is, Katakuri used the Mirror World to beat the Straw Hats back to their ship, and he brought a good number of troops with him, including Perospero, Lick. Arriving with the shark submerge, Chopper and Brook are the first to come upon this occupation. They are given a chance to run by Perospero, Lick, but they obviously don't take it and jump into action to liberate their ship. What a combo! They do a good job against the goons, but when it comes to mini-boss time, they're both screwed. Perospero, Lick, coats them in his candy. You can't win them all. Seeing the Sunny occupied and Chopper and Brook in danger, Luffy charges ahead without flinching, and this is where things get very interesting for a particular Jaguar. In the last section of the story I'll talk about today, we see Pedro's connection with Gold Roger. When Pedro was just a young cub, he met Roger and other members of his crew on Zou. Seeing Luffy, he believes that the Straw Hats are the ones the Minks and the Kozuki clan have been waiting for centuries. They are the ones who will usher in the dawn of this world. Pedro also mentioned the coming dawn when he removed his left eye. It isn't exactly clear what the hell he's talking about, but he's based his entire life on this idea. Pedro tried to join Roger's crew as a kid, but Roger told Pedro it wasn't his time yet. Everybody has their turn. After news of Roger's execution spread, it hit Pedro really hard. I also want to point out that we see for the first time a lot of familiar faces at Roger's execution in Logtown. Doflamingo, Buggy, Moria, Mihawk, Crocodile, Shanks, and Dragon. That's a really interesting gathering of people, and it makes me think that at least Roger's allies, like Buggy and Shanks, must have known why he was going through with this. I know it was over 20 years ago, but Shanks still had to be decently tough. I can't see him not racing to save Roger without a good reason, especially since he's bawling his eyes out here. But anyway, this idea of the Dawn, which seems to be passed down by the Minks and is somehow wrapped up in Roger, has consumed Pedro's life. He named his pirate group the Nox Pirates because Nox means before the dawn. He wanted to act as a foundation for the coming of that dawn, and now is the chance he's been waiting for. It's finally his turn. With the Sunny caught in Perospero's lick candy, Pedro takes him down by blowing himself up with dynamite, convinced to the end that by saving the Straw Hats, he can assure the coming of the dawn. This was a great moment for Pedro. He's been ready to die since he set out on this journey, and sacrificing himself to secure everyone else's freedom was a great way for him to go out. Carrot freaks out as he dies, and we see some glimpses of her tutelage under him. I'm hoping that this maybe kickstarts some activity for Carrot by the end of this arc that is at all interesting. Meanwhile, Luffy takes on Katakuri, and the story is really playing up how similar their power sets are. I haven't mentioned this yet, but as a Mochi Mochi fruit eater, Katakuri also has a stretchy gummy body similar to Luffy's. Although, Katakuri has the added bonuses of literally being able to see the future, and for some reason, Luffy's hardened hockey attacks are not able to make contact with the Sweet General. So, to ensure that Katakuri doesn't interfere with the Sunny setting off, Luffy pulls him into the mirror dimension. He tells the crew that he's leaving the rest up to them, and then smashes the mirror to the Sunny. The two square off in what I'm sure will be an epic fight. Meanwhile, of course, Perospero, Lick, is somehow alive, which is bullshit, and the Sunny manages to coup de burst out of Big Mom's grasp. The race to Chocolate Town has begun. We've been through a lot together today, but now it's time to bring this video to a close. I think this middle section of Whole Cake Island did an excellent job paying off everything that was set up in the previous section. The reunion of Sanji and Luffy was handled near perfectly. The shady gangster alliance was a nice twist that is well set up in retrospect. Big Mom's backstory was an unexpected delight. And of course, all the wedding madness will go down in history as one of the best sequences throughout One Piece. I said it in my last video, and I'll say it again. I am loving Whole Cake Island so far. There's still a lot to get through. Luffy's fight with Katakuri, Big Mom chasing the Straw Hats to Chocolate Town, and the quest to see if Carrot will ever become an interesting character. All this and more will be discussed in my next video, but for now, I need to rest. It has been one crazy month. All One Piece, all the time. If you're insane enough to still be watching this video, I'd wager you were with me for most of this month, and I just want to thank you. Your support means pretty much everything to me. If you like what I'm doing, talking about completely insane shit that I love, I would really appreciate it if you gave my Patreon a look if you haven't already. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I gotta take a break now, but until the next time, I'll shut up.